fibers.
For some reason or another, but that's why it's important to read the bottom a lot of times and look, you know, and see where the bait is, where the fish are. It's an invaluable tool. I mean, you can't, you know, I go out on very rarely to a new spot without my fish finder. Now, the holes that I go to every other day, I may not take it, but you know, when I go to a new spot, it is crucial to learning that area to have a fish finder to be able to tell what the fish are doing in that particular area.
What was the brand name on that floating soft plastic?
This is a Z-Man. I really prefer Strike King Zulus. They have a great selection of colors. They don't come pre-scented. These do. I don't use a whole lot of scents most of the time unless it's Gulp. Gulp comes with it. I use it, but
He ain't got a lot of sense, I'll tell you that now.
a lot of the guys love the scent that comes on these. They're called Procure. You know, I've got some. I rarely use it, but I like having the choice of putting it on if I want to, you know, rather than having it come on already. But Strike King Zulu, they actually have a color that's kind of similar to this, just a very natural, you know, greenish blue flake in a white body that I really like. Bass Pro just discontinued selling them, but I think Academy might have them, and on occasion Walmart has them. But you can find them online pretty easily. So Strike King Zulu, I think 5-inch or 6-inch. Yes, sir?
When fishing topwater, do you find the time of day makes a big difference on topwater?
Yes and no. And this is what's tough. There's never any set rules. Early morning's great, evening's great. But I've caught fish on topwater at 12 o'clock in the middle of the day. You know, I've caught fish at night around lights on topwater. I mean, it's pretty much, you can fish on topwater all day long and catch fish all day long, but you might have a better chance of catching those fish on a wet, I got all three on the time, on a wake bait, which is going to be, which is just a hair under the surface. And I try to, if I start off topwater, first thing in the morning, catch a couple of fish, if the bite dies down, I'll just work my way down to the next level and start with that. And this gives me from literally an inch under the surface all the way down to a foot, just depending on how I hold my rod. And it covers, you know, that part of the column pretty well. And if that doesn't produce, then you work your way to the next level. And the same with the soft plastics. If the water is really clear and you don't want all those hooks dangling down, you know, just use one of these with a single offset shank wide gap hook, rigged like you would a bass worm. I can demonstrate that if you'd like, real quick. This is the way I do all my weightless plastics. Just take a hook. That's a pretty standard, call that a wide gap offset shank. It's a bass hook. You can buy them in all kinds of sizes as well. Stick that straight section straight through the nose, straight in, and pull straight out the bottom. You go feed that all the way up to your line, where it's like that. Find where it's going to go through the body, and stick it through. And it'll ride flush on the top of that lure. It's just a little less, to me, it looks a little less crazy with all those hooks hanging off. And that's weedless as well. If you're fishing in a grassy area, that's not going to catch on the grass. And when they bite, it exposes the hook. We're good to go. I'll pass that around. That's pretty much what I use for as far as soft plastics, you know, other than the jig head. But I can do one of those too. Any other questions?
Where's your honey hole? Oh, go ahead and answer this man right here.
Which one?
This time of year.
This time of year? I can't tell you that. If I told you, I could tell you.
For those that are fishing from kayaks and we're thinking about it, any recommendations? Comfort, seat height, I'm looking at your rig right there.
This is actually Hayes Anderson's boat. He had it in here earlier. He and I fish on the same pro staff though. And this is the ocean kayak version. This seat will go lower if you're in windier, areas, fishing open water. That seat will go lower. You can jack it up if you want a better view. Something I even do every once in a while. Flip it up out of the way, stand there, or put my cooler there and sit on it. But there is no perfect kayak for any one person. But if you're wanting to paddle up to about 6 miles round trip, 8 miles at the most, any of these stand-up platforms are great. And the pedal boats are great. You can go further in those. Long skinny boats, you can go a little further. But you're not, like I said, my long skinny boat, if I gotta go to the bathroom, I'm out of luck, so I'm not standing up. Not in the Gulf anyway.
You got to get overboard.
But that's yeah. There are countless kayaks out there, and they're all great. I'm gonna obviously tell you what my brand that I represent, but Fairhope Boat Company sells most of the major brands, and they'll let you try any of them before you buy them. As far as colors go, I just think white is always good, or anything close to natural. Every once in a while I throw chartreuse. Now, I have something for the chartreuse swimming mullet, which is this bait. I'm doing really well with the chartreuse version of this. But other than that, I'm almost always white or clear or glow. Glow is another good one because it's pretty natural looking during the daytime, and it works well at night. But that's pretty much it.
Did you tell them your theory about why you don't use a whole lot of colors, why you're not using purple on
Well, my thing is, watercolor does affect how well the fish can see the bait. And so, I will use chartreuse if the water is really muddy. But the fish aren't changing color. The bait that those fish are after are always going to be white. They're always going to be close to white or close to clear. That neutral bait color. I mean, we've all seen bait fish, so why change to a purple minnow if the water's a different color? Because the minnows aren't going to change. Sure, a redfish might eat that. He probably will eat a purple with a root beer with a chartreuse tail or all that. But for me, keep things simple. I don't have to buy 10 different colors when I go to Bass Pro Shop, and it seems to work. So you hold your tongue right. A lot of times it just works out. That's my #1 rule. If you hold your tongue right, you're liable to catch a fish. So there's a lot of luck involved, no matter how much you do it.
The salinity got anything to do with the fish you do?
I wouldn't be able to answer that question. I'd say yes, but
maybe not what they're doing, but where they're at.
where they're at, absolutely.
Yes. But, there's always buts. You're not going to catch a trout right now in an 8-foot hole in the middle of the bay, most likely. You're going to be finding them at the fresher dumps, where the creeks are dumping out, and the rivers. They're going more towards fresher water this time of year, and in the fall.
I was just going to add something to that. Like when you get on some of these little bayous and river systems like that, if you get a really hard rain or something like that, the next day you're probably not going to catch them in the backside of that bayou where you was catching them. A speckled trout anyways. They're going to push out toward the mouth, or they're going to flush out just to the outside. And as soon as that fresh water flushes out there, they're right back in there. Speckled trout hate fresh water. They'll, like he's talking about.
They don't tolerate it as well as other species.
Exactly.
Redfish, you'll hear about guys catching redfish up the Mobile River by the Dolly Park Bridge, you know, like way out of their element, or Chickasaw Creek. I've caught 3 or 4 in Chickasaw Creek in the last year. You know, that's, when I first came down here, that's the last place I was thinking about catching anything inshore-wise, but they're there, you know. And it's just, you know, it's all about practice too. You get out, you'll get a feel, you know. I've only been back to this area for about 3 years, and I feel like I've got the speckled trout keyed in. I haven't mastered redfish and flounder as well. I know what they should be doing. The speckled trout, I can just about, give me a couple days, I can find them for you. You know, it's a work in progress, no matter how much you do it. You know, Kyle and I, and hey, a lot of these guys, we fish sometimes 3 or 4 days a week. You know, there's still days where we just don't catch them. You know, we're not holding our toes right. So it's just part of it.
I tell you, on the trout are going to go where they're comfortable at, and they're comfortable in a certain range of temperature of the water and a certain salinity. They seek out a certain salinity of water, because if the water gets too much salt in it, they will move upstream to where they can get into that salinity that they're comfortable living in. And so that's the key right there is the water temperature that the water's at, and most of the time they're going to try to stay in something in the high 50s up into the 70s.
Yeah, they're
70s. That's the ideal temperature of water.
metabolism.
I discovered something this past week in an area that I fish pretty often, but I never noticed it. There's a freshwater runoff coming into this area that's right off the bay. But there's a freshwater runoff in there, and it's coming through a pipe out of the bulkhead. And there was like a 10-degree temperature change. And I could look on my fish finder, and when I would get past that to where it warmed up, there was no fish on my fish finder. But where it was cooler, and I guess saltier as well, because that thing in that thermocline in the water also had something to do with the salinity, there was fish all underneath me. I mean, you couldn't see the bottom for all the fish on my fish finder, but the second you got into that warmer water, it's like no man's land. No bait, nothing. But it was also extremely fresh water. So, you know, it does have a lot to do with it. And I had never known, I had fished in that place 100 times last year probably, and never noticed that before. And sure enough, I looked on my fish finder, and it was like wide open, nothing but bait, mullet, speckled trout, to like a desert. You know, it was all that salinity, just the salinity change right in that little area. So it does make a big difference. But if y'all have any questions about kayaks, or if y'all want to look at, this is Hayes' boat, if y'all want to look at it, you can. Fairhope Boat Company has several models upstairs that they are selling, and we have a pool outside where you can hop in one and try it out, stand up in it.
Yeah, and MBKFA's got a tent out there by the pool. If you're interested in signing up for the club, we got everything you need right there to get it done.
$10 a year for fishing reports.
Yeah, for this year.
We have a group called Let's Go Fishing. You get on there and you say, hey, I need somebody to go fishing with me tomorrow. We got some retired folks or just some bums like Kyle over here that will most likely meet you up if he can. You know, it's a pretty neat, you know, place to go, and I think we're up to like 1,200 or 1,300 members, something crazy like that. There's plenty of guys in the area that can give you information and go fishing with you, as far as kayaks go.
It's a good bunch of people.
Yeah. Very family oriented.
Right.